welcome back, listeners, to the Mindful Living podcast. I'm your host, Sana, and today we are diving into the transformative power of community and connection. Our guest, Ben, knows firsthand how meaningful relationships can change lives. As the founder of Karuna Kava, Ben has created a thriving community centered around kava, which is a natural alternative to alcohol that fosters connection without the haze of intoxication. Listeners, Ben's journey from addiction and adversity to building a safe and intentional space for others is nothing short of inspiring for all of us. So, he's here today on the Mindful Living to share his story of resilience, transformation, and the lessons he has learned about the importance of community in healing and growth. So, let's get quickly started, listeners. Ben, welcome to the show, and it's an absolute honor having you with us today.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, Ben, can you share your personal journey with all of us and how it led you to discover kava and its benefits?
Sure. So from a pretty young age, I really started to understand the way that I could change the way that I felt with substances, mostly alcohol. My father passed away when I was 11, and that left a real void in my life. And I'd watched him from a very young age, probably 5 years old, 4 years old, struggle with his own drinking issues. And when he passed away, I kind of got mixed into the wrong crowd and started drinking pretty heavily. I felt like it made me fit in, kind of touching on that community aspect. I feel it falsely made me feel like I was a part of something bigger than myself. But, pretty quickly it was apparent that I didn't drink the same way that other people drank. I took it to a different level. And, throughout high school, I got in trouble a couple times. I almost got expelled for an alcohol-related drinking incident. And then I got into college. I went to a big college in Indiana, Indiana University, go Hoosiers. But it's a big party school. And I got into a fraternity. And drinking was a big part of that. And even my fraternity brothers, they didn't drink the way that I drank. They would party, but then when Monday would come around, they would be done. I would want to keep going. I would want to keep drinking, and pretty quickly it developed into a physical addiction. So when I stopped drinking, I would get really sick. And, I've also struggled with different mental health issues throughout my life, mostly bipolar disorder. And so when I would drink, I would have these powerful experiences where, for lack of a better way to say it, I would kind of lose my mind. And so throughout my college career and in my earlier adult life, I was admitted to mental health institutions multiple times because when I would drink alcohol, I would feel extremely lonely and I would relive traumas of the past, and I would want to commit suicide. And so throughout this journey, I had kind of started to delve into recovery, mostly because I'd had legal issues. I'd gotten arrested for drunkenness and drinking alcohol as a minor and stuff like that. And so I found myself in this space where I was very lonely amongst my peers because they were all drinking, but I found this joy in kind of the community of the recovery community, the traditional recovery community. Um, and I would have stints of sobriety that would be very helpful, but then I would relapse, pretty quickly. I wasn't able to maintain sobriety. Um, and so it came to a point where I'd gone to rehab and I'd kind of straightened out for a second, and I decided I was going to move to Colorado because I also really, really love to snowboard, and have always loved skateboarding, and really found a lot of relief and freedom in board sports and extreme sports.
Mhm.
So I moved to Colorado, and on the flight to Colorado, I relapsed. As with many alcoholics, airports have traditionally been kind of a trigger for me. And so I showed up in Colorado, and I was living with an old snowboarding buddy, and I didn't realize that they had been evicted. So almost immediately I was homeless in Colorado, and I had drank away all my money. And so I called somebody through the Alcoholics Anonymous hotline, which is an amazing service that's available for people all over the world that I highly suggest people take advantage of if they're struggling. And this guy came, picked me up, and he got me into a sober living house. And at this sober living house, there were some guys drinking this kava stuff. I didn't really know what it was at the time, but I came to a crossroads where I was thinking about relapsing. I kind of got back to that same spot that I'd been to many times before, where I was stressed out about something. I don't even remember what it was. I think a girl broke up with me maybe, but um I was thinking about getting a drink. And so I went in downtown Colorado Springs, and I was kind of looking around for a bar where I could go blow my life up at.
Okay.
And I found this kava bar, and I went to this kava bar instead, Ohana Kava Bar. Great spot. And I went in there, and there was all these people hanging out. They weren't drinking. They were they seemed to be very friendly with one another and had familiarity with one another. And they were drinking this kava stuff, and I drank some kava, and I felt pretty calm. I distinctly remember that I didn't feel like I wanted to drink alcohol anymore after I drank the kava. I felt like I didn't need to go do that. And I made some friends, and I found community in that community, and so uh luckily I ended up getting a job there because I was persistent, and uh worked there for about a year. Had a son. My son was born, and after my son was born, I kind of decided I needed to do something else to support my family. And so I started looking for spots to open up my own kava bar, and my own, I'd started brewing kava at home with different brewing methods and natural flavors and ingredients, and found that there were a lot of different ways to make kava very tasteful, because one of the main things people struggle with kava is it's bitter. Kava is actually the Tongan word for bitter. It's earthy, woody, peppery. It's not something people usually drink for the flavor. But I was starting to figure out how to make it taste good. And so I was looking for spots that had mountains but did not have kava bars. And there was Boise, Idaho. And so I moved here, sight unseen, with my son and his mom, and started doing farmers markets and little pop-up events and music events wherever I could. Really, I was sneaking kava into the restaurant that I worked at in a backpack so I could sell it to the cooks and to my man to my managers. And yeah, it was funny. And through this process, I was able to find investors eventually. And in 2022, opened up Karuna Kava bar. And that's located here in Garden City, Idaho, which is part of Boise, really. But almost immediately, I discovered that there were all these people coming in here that were trying not to drink or didn't drink or were looking for healthier relationships with alcohol and needed an alternative. And we found friendship, we found camaraderie, we found togetherness. And that's really what helped me stop drinking, because I was still I had relapsed a few times during this process. And I'm coming up on 2 years completely free of alcohol on the 15th of January. And I owe all of that to the people that come to this kava bar and hang out in here, because, there's something about being connected that is just so good for your mental health. Um, and I think all the studies show that too. There's been rat studies that show that, rats that are isolated tend to have more destructive substance use issues than rats that have community. And it's been a real joy to watch people come in here and kind of find the same benefits that I've found through drinking kava and through coming to a kava bar. We're a non-alcoholic bar. We don't serve alcohol. It's not on the menu. In fact, it's against the rules. And so it's been a joy, really one of the joys of my life, next to having my children and my wife, is being a part of this, because really at this point it's not like I'm the leader of this movement. I'm just another part of it. I'm just another member in it, benefiting from it. And so uh I just love it. It's been just such an amazing experience to watch so many people come in here and find a better way of life through what we're doing.
Definitely. And wow, wow, Ben. First of all, it takes a lot of vulnerability to share the darkest moments of your life, and then also the journey of self discovery, recovery, and then creating something, you know, call it a coincidence, or how universe plays its part, that you got familiar with kava, and now you're helping others out there with the power of community, human touch, human interactions, helping uh, people out there to better their lives. It's really, really inspiring. Very, very inspiring. I'm very sure our listeners, will get so much inspiration and positivity from what you are doing. And how did you come across the name Karuna? Because in India, Karuna, it means actually self compassion or mercy. So why did you name it as Karuna Kava?
That's a good question, actually. And it's because of the meaning, really. When I was living at that sober living house, I was volunteering at a yoga studio, and I was cleaning the yoga studio once a week in exchange for free yoga classes. And I'd started going um, to a local Buddhist group, and I had taken Buddhism in college and had found it very compelling. And I'd actually had, some of my stints of sobriety involved meditation, and I've always found meditation, mindfulness to be very helpful. And I believe that kava is a very compassionate beverage. It's a compassionate tradition too. I mean, from the South Pacific Islands, alcohol beat me up so bad, and it almost nearly killed me, and it's killed my friends. I've lost people to this disease of addiction or this mental illness of addiction, however you want to phrase it. And um when I was trying to figure out what to call it, I was kind of looking through some Buddhist scriptures in spiritual reading, and I came across this word karuna, and I just felt like it really encompassed what we were trying to do, because we're not trying to get people high, we're not trying to get people drunk, we're trying to help people find compassion for themselves. And because that's what I found through this practice is self-compassion, because addiction is a disease of isolation and self-hatred. And, I think any addict or alcoholic who's listening to this really understands like the amount of pain that you inflict upon yourself through the actions that you're taking. And with Kava, it was a safe port in a storm for me and for many others, as I've found out. And so Karuna just felt like the right word for it. And it's stuck.
Lovely, lovely. So, did you face any challenges in building a Kava based community? If yes, then how did you overcome them?
Yeah, I think some of the challenges that we face is some misunderstandings on a societal level, because back in the 90s there was a medication called Laytan that used a acetone derived kava extraction that poisoned people. A lot of people think that kava is damaging to the liver, or has other negative health impacts, and that really isn't true according to all of the modern research. So like the way I put it is an apple dangerous? Well, no, I feed apples to my children all the time. It's one of my favorite snacks is an apple. I mean, it's hard to beat an apple really. And but if you take 100 pounds of apple seeds and you run acetone through them, you've just created cyanide.
Yeah.
And so I feel like overcoming some of the misunderstandings about kava have been difficult. But we we've really been able to overcome those by sticking to traditional preparation methods where we're using high quality, noble quality, which is kind of like the types of kava plants that are grown for human consumption. Uh, and doing water preparation, doing it the way that traditional communities have been using kava for 3,000 years. I mean, if a society has been doing something for 3,000 years, in my opinion, there's a good chance that's the way it should be done. Um, and so, one of the other uh, challenges that I really like to overcome is the fact that our community is often uh, you know, comprised of addicts and alcoholics. And sometimes that means you're dealing with people in relapse, you're dealing with people at different stages of their recovery journey. But that challenge is really what I love about it, because you're able to see people at their worst. You're able to see people when they're really, really hurting. And you're also able to help those people get to a better place, which is beautiful.
Lovely, lovely. That is so inspiring, Ben. Also, on the flip side, while alcohol-free spaces, like Karuna Kava, they are growing in popularity, critics might say they are just replacing one substance with another. How do you address concerns that Kava could similarly become a dependency?
Yeah, I actually do totally understand that, because I myself at times have, you know, abused kava, drank too much kava. The difference is when you drink too much kava, you might get kind of nauseous, you might get dry skin, but you're not gonna burn your life down. I so it's sort of like replacing uh a shotgun shot to the chest with a hug. Like it's a maybe it's definitely not the ultimate fix to addiction. It's a harm reduction technique.
Mhm.
It's a harm reduction tool. It's something that, I'm dealing with this right now with a close friend who's just relapsed on alcohol, and they're totally destroying their entire life with alcohol. Whereas if you use kava as a way to avoid the more dangerous and destructive drugs and alcohol, then the consequences just aren't even equivocal. Like, because with kava, like I said, you might get dry skin eventually because it's a diuretic, but I think it's a tool for people to use in conjunction with, a spiritual awakening, other recovery methods, therapy. When it comes to dealing with addiction, we're talking about a deathly illness. It's gonna kill you eventually, or it's going to put you in jail, or it's going to cause you to take actions that harm other people. And, we still haven't had a fight at the Kava bar in 2.5 years. We've had a lot of hugs, like, um, people don't leave here and crash their cars, like, you still want to be mindful of driving a vehicle. If you've had a lot of Kava, you should probably get an Uber. But it doesn't affect your mental and your physical capabilities in the same way that hard drugs and alcohol do. So I hear those criticisms and I welcome them. And that's why we're not just a kava bar. We also have a wide selection of teas. We have kombuchas, we have cacao, we have yerba mate, we have, all sorts of fun stuff to drink that doesn't contain alcohol. It's mostly about being a safe space for people to come where they don't even feel like alcohol is being pushed on them, because in our society, especially here in America, it doesn't matter where you go. Alcohol is everywhere. You can't go through the fruit section at the grocery store without walking past, dozens of bottles of wine. And so this space that we've created here, because it's not just me creating it, all my employees, all of our customers, it's a system. But this space we've created, it just doesn't, it's not even that we're anti-alcohol. We just don't even consider alcohol. It's just not a part of our life.
Makes sense. Also, Ben, as we are talking about the importance of community, in what ways do you think community plays a role in personal recovery and healing? I mean, your journey definitely is the most apt example here, but what do you think about this?
Well, I think the research is pretty clear, like, I think if I just drank kava at my house in a vacuum, I don't know that I wouldn't relapse on alcohol. It's the connections that I've made here. It's the feeling of being a part of something bigger than myself, which, I mean, because I've sat through thousands of AA meetings, and traditional recovery has been incredibly beneficial to me, staying away from alcohol. And it's because, according to the steps of recovery meetings, 12-step recovery, a big part of that is turning your life over to a power that's greater than yourself, being a part of something bigger than yourself that kind of holds you accountable. And I found that to be true, for my own recovery and from what I've witnessed in other people's recovery. So I think it's a huge part. I think it's a critical part for long-term recovery and long-term sobriety away from alcohol and drugs.
Great, great, Ben. And before we wrap up, what are your hopes for the future of Karuna Kava and similar community based wellness spaces?
my hopes for Karuna Kava specifically is that we continue to share the joys of uh, non-alcoholic living and can help introduce harm reduction techniques to more people and to let people know, that you don't need to do those things that hurt you. You can walk away from them. You can get away from it. And there is hope out there. There are resources out there, and there are people that love you no matter what, because addiction is a disease of isolation. And sometimes when you're in the thick of it, you just feel so alone, and you feel like no one loves you and that no one likes you and that you're worthless and that you can't make it another day. And that's just not true. I've lost friends that, it's kind of making me tear up now, but I've lost friends to this addiction that didn't need to die. They didn't need to die. I hope that Karuna is able to continue to share that message with other people and to hopefully save someone. Now, for the industry, I hope that we don't get off track because, you know, like all substances, there are other things within this space that I think can be destructive. I don't think kava extracts and kava concentrates are probably a good thing for the industry. I'd like for the industry to move towards traditional use products. I mean, like in the 1990s, that was a kava extract made from non-noble kava, and it's theorized that they were using the stems and leaves to make that extract, and that's what caused issues for people. And so, I would like the community to think about, maybe steering away from kratom and some of these other compounds that tend to be a little more addictive, because as we kind of touched on earlier, we're not trying to replace someone's addiction with just another addiction. We're trying to help people get away from addiction and find freedom. So that's what I hope, the non-alcoholic spaces move towards.
Inspiring, Ben. And if our listeners they wish to explore more about Karuna Kava and the work you are doing in spreading the joys of community-based wellness spaces, how they can do that.
Yeah, so karunakava.com. That's KARUNAKAVA.com. That's a great spot to check out. Our Instagram and Facebook are similarly Karuna Kava, KARUNAKAVA. We've got a lot of super funny videos on our Instagram. I like to make little skits and stuff like that. So, um, that's a great place to kind of check out what we're doing. We are limited to shipping and selling inside the United States right now, just because our product is, we don't use preservatives. I'm not a fan of artificial preservatives. We like to keep a clean label. And so we have to ship everything priority. And so that kind of restricts us to the United States. But hopefully one day we'll be able to, work out a way to sell it worldwide.
Definitely. Wow, that is so inspiring, listeners. And Ben, thank you for this conversation. It's been such a powerful reminder to all of us that how community can uplift, heal, and transform. And thank you for inspiring all of us.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a real joy, and I thank you for having me on.
So, listeners, whether you are on a journey of personal growth, exploring sobriety, or looking for ways to foster deeper connections, Ben's story and insights offer so much wisdom to all of us. If you would like to learn more about Karuna Kava or connect with Ben, be sure to check out the links in our show notes. And as always, if you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and share it with someone who might benefit from this conversation. Until next time, stay mindful and connected. Thank you.